30 to 60 minutes. Because the more when people start, actually what I'm hearing from them is oftentimes raw conversation, that stream of consciousness, because information just generates more questions. So it can evolve in the 30 to 60 minutes. But for my free consultations, which are always free, it doesn't matter to me. I always tell folks, it's part of my business model. They couldn't call me too much or email me too much, even though I'm not on the clock. One of the reasons is, as you nailed, there's a lot of misconceptions about divorce. They're getting a lot of bad advice. So I'd rather them do that with me. Plus, the more time I have with them, the more I can make them comfortable with who I am and my style as a mediator.
Do people come back to you and say thank you? Do people come back to you years later? What has been your experience of the gratitude level?
It's a two-part question, believe it or not. The gratitude level, not just for me, but for any mediator who achieves a successful agreement, people want to carry you out on their shoulders. I'm not exaggerating, because we use divorce, which is usually the ultimate example of hostilities, angst, and what's involved, life-critical issues. They come in, oftentimes, I'll bet at least 50% or more of the people come in thinking, this is impossible. No mediator could overcome this. So it could surmount the issues we have. I hear that a lot. And then they realize that over time, within 8 hours, it happens to you. So although people will come in with healthy skepticism, I am able to, in those consultations, address their concerns and fears, diminish that, and get them to the table. So that's not exactly, getting them into mediation isn't exactly the hard part once they know they're getting divorced and they want to save money. It's actually being in there in the moment where they're sitting across from each other, and that's where the magic happens. That's where the mediator's work is done.
Have you ever done mediation where people are out of state?
Once again, very intuitive question. I haven't done out of state, but I have done not in person. Technically, if you're face-to-face, that would be a mediation. Here's how I define the difference. If you're not face-to-face, physically face-to-face, for whatever reason, that's a conciliation. It's the same difference, but that's how I define it. Conciliation means you're not face-to-face. Mediation is you're face-to-face. So I've had to do it where, for whatever reason, business, moving, or otherwise, people have been unable to be physically present to do a mediation. I've had that rare occasion. But my practice is, my methodology that I actually promote and teach is to have them at that table, eyeball to eyeball. That's where the magic really is.
What about if one of the parties is moving out of state, there's children involved, and it's very complex?
I've done that. I can answer that question. Now, I'm going to define complex. Complex, it's never so complex that it can't be figured out. It just feels complex. But if you take it, and much of what I do is dissect problems so you can attack the problem, and start resolving it. But I've done more than my fair share of people who, mostly for financial reasons, have had to leave the state as a divorce. It's obscenely expensive to live in California.
That's true.
So sometimes, because their incomes have been reduced, they have to move Midwest or back with families somewhere. The only thing complex would be the visitation, and even that's not hard. It's more the logistics of it. Because if you're out of state, you have young children, and both parents want to see their kids live out of state, it simply means we have to figure this out. In broad strokes, almost invariably, it has to be where wherever the kids go into school, that's the primary residence, and the other person sees the children when they're not in school, in broad strokes. But everything has, take it to the bank. Everything has an answer. In fact, if I can take a second to embellish on that.
Sure.
I think people find this interesting. When people come to me for divorce as a mediator, no matter how insurmountable they think it is, here's a guarantee, Kim. I guarantee there's at minimum one answer in the universe. At least one. And how do I know that as a mediator? Because if they go to court and they leave it up to a judge, that judge is going to render a decision. There's no one who goes before a judge for any reason, divorce or otherwise, where the judge goes, you know what? You stumped me. I can't figure this out. That never happens. So since we know a judge is going to figure it out, the mediator simply, his or her job is to draw the people, not push them. Litigation pushes people to the answer. Mediation pulls people to the answer where, since we know there's a minimum of one answer in the universe, you come to that decision.
Sounds very much like rainmaking.
It's probably analogous to that, and the reason is it's perfect. It's ideal. If there's such a thing as a panacea for conflict, mediation and negotiation is as close as you can come. For the United States and the Western culture, mediation is that panacea as much as one can be for any conflict.
How come it is that when people first come in to mediation, even though, let's say, one person initiated it and the person that they're not going to be with anymore has agreed, it still doesn't mean they come in visioning the resolution or really seeing the possibility. And sometimes when they begin, they don't see that possibility of a resolution. You must be doing something that's equivalent to magic. At what point do you usually see couples that are dissolving their association begin to have the lights on that something is in the works?
Sure. Again, intuitive question. Me, I use an extreme to make a point. I compare it to borrowing from Kubler-Ross, the Death and Dying, the series, the sequence, the steps of grieving. I've had people who come into a divorce, to answer your question. Someone is already at the acceptance stage. They're mentally and emotionally already divorced. They just are. And in fact, might even be in a relationship already. The other person is at the earlier stages, maybe depression, maybe anger. Within those 8 hours, to answer your question, I can see and sense when I have been able to draw that person who's in denial or depression and move them toward acceptance, at least to the point where this divorce is happening to them. So when someone comes in either begrudgingly, dragging their feet, or they're in denial, that's part of my job, is to bring them forward. And here's a quick answer, a statement I make that will make my point. I tell them, and this is always true, in California, since it's community property, no-fault state, a divorce can happen to you or a divorce can happen with you. Because in California, it only takes one spouse to get a divorce. You don't need two people to get a divorce. It just takes one. The other person can make it challenging and drag their feet, but they can't stop it. So when I tell them it can happen with you or to you, let it happen with you and let me help you, that gives you a sense of what I'm always doing in there to bring them forward for their sake.
It's inspiring their own dominion.
Well said.
Let's talk about another kind of invisible thing that's going on, at least subconsciously, with people that are dissolving their association, which is the issue of saving face. That happens too. That's in there, in the texture.
Yes.
Do you find that on some level, your facilitation helps save face if there's a lot of hurt?
Once again, and I'm not just blowing smoke at you. You're exactly right. You've done your homework, or your intuition's working perfectly. Restate that question one more time, and I'll give you a direct answer. Right now.
Okay. There's going to be times where one of the two people has gotten hurt or offended or insulted, or something has gone public, or they've been emotionally injured, spiritually injured from the other party, at least in their perception, or something that's happened. And so as they enter mediation, there can be in the dynamic this need to save face.
Okay.
How do you deal with that?
And let me go directly to what I teach and what I practice. When I tell you that you're onto something here, that saving face concept, and thank you for repeating that question, that saving face concept is critical in any negotiation, but particularly in a divorce that's high tension and face-to-face. Where it comes up most of all for mediation is in a caucus. The word is caucus, C-A-U-C-U-S. All it means is a private, confidential meeting between the mediator and one of the parties during the process. It's in that caucus where I can take more license or liberty because the other person can't hear or see me. I don't breach neutrality, but I can now coach or Dutch uncle somebody a little more than I can over there. And so as I'm speaking to them about saving face, might not use those words, but I give them options, or I paint a scenario that says, is this really what you want to pursue? I won't go on and on. But my job is to draw from them, how does this make sense for you if you do that? Or said another way, if a mediator can get someone to change their mind while saving face for their sake, they owe you 10 times what they're paying you.
Exactly.
That's how important it is. And so I'm always there saving face for the other person, either right before their very eyes in front of people or in a caucus. It really is critical. And it's that people have no idea you're doing that for them. They have no idea.
Right. That's why I'm bringing it up, because it's in the texture. It's subtle. It's being done in a way that it's being taken care of.
Let me ask you a rhetorical question. I'm going to ask for your response. If you would like that, if you were in divorce mediation, you would welcome that if you saw it, where I allowed you to change your mind to save face. You would be grateful for that privilege. And so knowing that, and when I do that for folks, they don't go, okay, John taught me a lesson. It's good. John's giving me a